Good morning, everyone. I know I still have a few people filtering in from the waiting room, but I wanted us to go ahead and get started. My name is Savannah. I am the program director here with Yana and Strong Mamas Thriving Babies. And today we have Ellen LeBleu from Renewal Wellness Coaching. So she's a postpartum nurse coach, and she has a fantastic webinar. So with that, I'm just going to let you get started, Ellen. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for the intro. Good to see everybody this morning. I know people will kind of trickle in as they can. So all good. If you need to like hop off for a baby or do anything, no worries. If you're able to turn your camera on, even if you've got baby with you, I love that, just so I'm not like talking to myself. But I totally understand if for whatever reason you need to turn your camera off. No problem. But yes, my name's Ellen. I am a postpartum nurse coach. And I basically work with moms to help them learn how to take care of their own needs and kind of reconfigure like their own identity after having a baby. Whether that's your first baby or you're just a new again mom, I work with all kinds of moms, and I kind of work all along the spectrum, anywhere from pretty early postpartum to like a few years down the road when you just kind of wake up and you're like, who am I and what do I like to do? And so I as a background, I have two little girls myself. I have a 3-year-old and a girl who will be 1 tomorrow. I cannot believe it. But I started I became a nurse coach in between my two girls. And then after I had my second girl, that was when I kind of dove full in and started my business. And I knew that I wanted to work with moms, just because I know like there's such a need for it, because it's so easy to just kind of get lost in the trenches of motherhood and to kind of not just put yourself on the back burner, but like you realize that you don't do anything for yourself. And so I love helping moms kind of figure out how to find that balance and what that balance actually means or looks like for each individual person is completely different. But that's why I love doing what I do. I struggled with my first baby a lot with breastfeeding, and that kind of dominated my maternity leave and kind of my postpartum experience. And I know some people, whatever their kind of issue is postpartum, it's different for everybody. And some people it's smooth sailing and they don't have any issues. Some people they like can't catch a break and everything seems to be coming up. So everybody has a totally different postpartum experience, but I knew just with the troubles that I had that I wanted to help other moms to kind of like figure out their new normal and what that looks like. So I think right now there's just a couple of you guys on. If either of you are willing to share, I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourselves, just your name, how old your baby is, and then let's do something fun. Um, like something in the last week that you love, like a moment that you loved with your baby. You guys already know my backstory, so I don't need to reintroduce myself, but I'll start with a moment. With my 1-year-old, yesterday she stood up like without touching anything for the first time for a few seconds. So that was super fun to watch. And then I have a funny anecdote with my 3-year-old. We have an au pair, and I was teaching her the difference between sheet, like that goes on your bed, and shit, because she was saying, and it kept sounding like she was saying shit. And so I was teaching the difference. I was like, sheet versus shit. And my toddler apparently overheard the whole conversation, because 2 days later, she just out of nowhere is like, sheet, shit, sheet. And both died laughing. So that was my funny anecdote with my 3-year-old. So, Mary or Renata, if you guys are in a position to share, I'd love to hear just a quick intro from you guys.
Yeah, hi. Oh, hi, good morning. So my name's Renata.
Hi.
Hi, my little one is, I think we're on nine weeks now. It's hard to keep track of it, to be honest. Every day has just been kind of a little bit of a blur, but we're doing really well and he's happy and healthy, and I couldn't be more grateful for that in itself. But something that he recently started doing, which has just been melting me every time he does it, is just smiling. And we have, our little wake up in the morning routine down pretty well. And he's also really enjoying, me reading to him in the morning, which I think is pretty fun.
No, you're so cute. I love it. Thank you for sharing. That's so sweet.
Sure.
I'm Mary Beth. My son is about 4 months old, and some of the challenges we had for quite a while after we got home from the hospital, he had days and nights mixed up, so that was difficult. But something kind of cool from the past week, he got to meet another one of his cousins this past weekend. They were in town from Indiana, and the cousin's about 2 years old, and so it was kind of fun to see him smiling and interacting with her. And just kind of in general seeing his personality come out a lot more as he's getting older.
Yes, I love that. Just a little, like, for both of you, with little smiles, little giggles, all that stuff as it comes out is so sweet. And it makes it where you're not just like, it's not like a one way. I'm like, of course I love staring at my baby, but like, oh, the baby actually like sees me and recognizes me and can engage. It just makes it way more fun, I think. Love that. Well, great. So you guys both have babies around the like 2 to 3-ish range, 2 to 4, I think you said. And so you're kind of, still like pretty early on out of the first like that really intense like first month or so, but still pretty early in your kind of postpartum phase. And so I kind of what I wanted to talk about today is how to kind of, and actually we just had somebody else join. iPhone person, if you would like a moment to introduce yourself, I know you just hopped on. We just finished intros. We've got most of our babies are a couple to a few months old. If you wanted to intro yourself and your baby, and kind of where you're at postpartum, and something that you loved this week, like a moment you loved with your baby. Whoops, I think we lost. Never mind. iPhone person hopped off. So we'll carry on. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is how to kind of like figure out your new identity in this new role as a mother. And kind of I think I titled the webinar Reclaiming Your Identity, and how to figure out and find your confidence in motherhood. Because it's hard to be confident when it's something that none of us have ever done before. And there's no, I mean, of course, there's a million books out there, but there's no like hard and fast manual on how to be a mom. And so a lot of it is, some things we're taught and some things we learn, but a lot of it is like intuition and kind of leaning into your instincts and that kind of thing. And then of course, like knowing when to like phone a friend or phone a pediatrician, and get kind of a second opinion. And so how to kind of find who you are in this next phase, because we talk about, as a society, we talk a lot about bouncing back and like, how to kind of get back to your old self and like how things used to be. But it's not about bouncing back. It's about looking forward and seeing like what's in this next chapter for me. And so sometimes it feels like things are a little bit off, like kilter, like things are out of balance. But it's not that things are like broken or that anything's wrong. It's that you're transforming. You are becoming a new person. There's a term that I like to talk about. It's called matrescence. It's similar to adolescence, but it's instead of going from a child to a woman, it's going from like a woman to a mother. Because there's so many similarities. There's like, of course, like a ton of hormonal changes that happen in both of the transitions, but it's becoming like a new version of yourself, and you feel different, you look different, you act different afterwards. And so just leaning into that, I think, is really important. And so I think I love to use that example of like comparing, like transitioning into motherhood with comparing it with adolescence, because I think there's so many like ways that we can kind of give ourselves a little bit of grace when we don't try to like go back to who we were before we had babies. Because when you think of it that way, there's like shifts that are like psychological, there are shifts that are emotional, of course, with hormones too. And then there's shifts that are like social, like your social life completely changes. And you know, maybe it's changing for the better because everybody in your life already had kids and now you can kind of join the club. Or maybe it's shifting in an awkward kind of way where nobody else in your life has kids and now you're the one with kids and now you have to kind of navigate that. And so everybody has a different kind of life path in that way, but it's kind of a transformation that like it changes your dynamic in your life. And I don't know about you guys, but when I kind of came out on the other side of postpartum and you know, was kind of getting into my groove, getting into my routine, like I felt like I was like fundamentally different than how I was before. Because you have a different, you have this like deep sense of responsibility to like take care of your baby. And you are vulnerable in a different way, and all of that just completely changes your priorities. The way that you view yourself, the way that you build confidence, that can all fluctuate. And it can sometimes feel isolating, like when you maybe you feel like you've changed, but other people don't really like understand the magnitude. Maybe your husband doesn't quite get it, or your mom kind of forgot what it was like to be a new mom. And so or maybe your best friend doesn't have kids, so she doesn't fully understand the magnitude of the change, and that can kind of create a little bit of distance, and that makes it hard sometimes. But I feel like there's different chapters. I know a few more people have hopped on since we started talking, but I know the ones that we did chat with are still fairly early postpartum. And so like the early postpartum period, your identity is kind of like externally based, because everything that you do is like just keeping this human alive, right? Everything you do is based on feeding and napping, and trying to figure out how everything works. And then you're also recovering yourself. And so there's not a lot of wiggle room for like kind of the bigger picture. A couple people in. Oh, okay. And then when you're mid postpartum, when you're a little bit further on, like, you know, after the first few months, kind of into like the later part of that first year, you're kind of adjusting, you're figuring out your new like priorities, what's normal for you. And then in later postpartum, like 1 year plus, it's kind of like the integration phase where you find your groove, you really lean into your own identity. And so a lot of that is hard for us because it's so new.
Which I can't find, I'd have them in.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, sorry. I was talking to my husband. I thought I was muted.
Oh, you're good.
It's bothering him. I'm so sorry. I'm going to mute myself.
You're totally fine. You're totally fine. Welcome in. And so a lot of that is like building the confidence both of like as a mother, but also in yourself, just as a woman. So leaning into your own voice, I think is really huge postpartum because there's a lot of noise. We hear recommendations from our friends, from our mothers and in-laws, from the pediatrician, from social media, and it gets noisy, like to hear the recommendations from other people and what you're doing is wrong or what you're doing is like that's never going to work. And confidence is knowing what's right for you and what's right for your family and ignoring the rest. So like an easy example is like with sleeping. I know some people are like, as soon as like I want my baby in their crib out of my room so I can sleep. You know, I want to sleep train or cry it out or whatever I want to do to make that happen. And then other people are swinging the other way, the total opposite. Baby is going to sleep in bed with me and nurse all night long, however long they want to, for the first, could be years of their life. And if you have two people with those are kind of like the most dramatic sides of that conversation. They're not going to agree with each other on like how your baby should sleep. And so like, that's the noise that I'm talking about. Like, if you feel like it's best to co-sleep and all those things, then the person who's sleep training and has their kid in the crib is going to tell you that that's wrong and it's not safe. And of course, there are safe and unsafe ways to do that, but do what's right for your family and ignore everybody else. If you need like uninterrupted sleep to be a functional human, then figure out how to get the baby in the crib. But if you want to lean into like nurturing your baby and being a little bit softer in that regard, then figure out how to co-sleep and do what works for you and what works for your family, and let the rest of the noise, just put on your headphones and ignore them. Because ultimately it's your family and it's your child. And so you need to do what's right for them. And so it's leaning into what's right for you. And it's okay to doubt. Maybe you don't know, maybe you're not sure, but do what you can to be informed, try things out, but just make the decision and move on, as opposed to waffling back and forth and never knowing if you're right or not. You just do what's right for you and your family, and take that like kind of that messy action as opposed to like being indecisive. And so let me pull up here. I have a kind of visual I was going to share with you guys. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, one sec. There we go. Okay, can you guys see that? I think you can there. And so I kind of just wanted to go over how, like, what do we mean when we're saying like reclaiming your confidence, and what that like identity shift means or looks like in your life going forward. And so the kind of the challenge with that is you kind of feel a little bit lost, or you feel like you're just a mom, and you don't have time to do anything for yourself. Obviously, if you're super early, I'm not talking about like hobbies here. That's a little beyond the early postpartum phase, but whatever stage that you're in, lots of time for yourself could mean just like having a quiet like walk down the street by yourself to go like check the mail for a minute without anybody attached to you. If you're a little bit further along, maybe it's like, oh, I would love to join a book club and hang out with some girlfriends once a month. Or I love hiking and I want to get back to that. And how do I get back to that? But I don't have the time, or I don't have the energy. And so that's like the challenge of like making all that happen, because you feel disconnected from who you were before. And so I love to kind of help people look back at like what did you love to do, what are your hobbies, what do you enjoy, what fills your cup, and how do we still make that happen, and how do we like kind of reincorporate those things into your life going forward. Because yes, your life like fundamentally changes, but it's still your life and you still get to live it how you want. And it's so important to find those little snippets of things. Obviously, if your hobby before kids was skydiving, that's not something you could do with your babies. But maybe if you find a babysitter one day, you could do something like that. But if your hobby was hiking, then maybe it's more like, okay, I want to go on a hike with my baby. So I can still go enjoy the mountains, get out there. And then maybe sometimes it's hiking without the babies and going like a little bit further or a little bit longer because you don't have the kids with you. So finding those things that you used to love and figuring out how to continue to love them and incorporate them. So those identity shifts that we kind of talked about a little bit, there's the physical changes, like you just had a baby. And so I actually was talking to a girlfriend last night, like you took 9 months to grow that human, like your body doesn't go back to how it was in a week or in a month. Like or even in 9 months. Like it takes a long time for your body to recover, and like literally your organs are shifting around and going back to mostly normal. And maybe you have like loose skin, or maybe your weight fluctuates, you're breastfeeding, you're not breastfeeding, whatever that is. But there are physical changes after you have a baby, and so that can affect your confidence. And so leaning into that self-love, I think is really important, to give your body like the gratitude for literally growing a human without you having to even like think about it. It just knew how to do that and did it. And so giving your body that grace and that gratitude, and coming from that perspective, to allow you to lean into those changes, and to say, you know what, I'm showing up for myself, in whatever ways you can. If you're super early, like I'm not talking about going to the gym. I'm talking about like doing some like diaphragmatic breathing, and like learning how to like pay attention to your core and go for walks, and like those gentle things, to help you learn to like love your body, and kind of lean into those changes that happen. And then the emotional changes, like, again, if you're real early on, it is a little bit more emotional, because you do have a lot more like of those hormonal shifts. You're probably sleeping less than you will be in a month or two. So you're kind of at the peak of all of the like stress and the mood swings and all the shifting and role changing with your husband or your partner, that kind of thing. And then the social changes, the changes that you see like with your friendships, like I mentioned before, depending on if everybody has kids or if nobody has kids, and where does grandma fit in, and how does the mother-in-law, like, does she overstep boundaries, or and kind of figuring out everybody's place. And I also love to like reiterate that like part of like building confidence is, like we said, knowing what's best for your family. But some of that is setting boundaries, because parents, grandparents, they all love to, what they did was best, or they know best. But to have the confidence to know what's best for you and your family, and to be able to set those boundaries and put your foot down, I think is huge and really important, and really empowering when you can like have the confidence to say something that is you, sticking up for your baby. Because all these little things, all these little decisions that we make are all, like just the beginning of you advocating for your baby and for your child, because that's what we do as their parents for their whole lives. So this is just the beginning of you kind of standing up for your family and for your baby. And so I encourage you, as we talk about confidence and identity shifting, is to figure out how to do like one small thing for you every week. If you're on maternity leave, maybe that's like going to the coffee shop on a weekend with a friend without the baby. Or maybe you know, like don't have the partner that can take the baby, or maybe you would rather take the baby with you. Bring the baby, but go to the coffee shop with a girlfriend, or go by yourself and just bring a book and get out of the house. Or maybe you just want to go for a long walk with just you and the dog. Find those little things that you enjoy, that little bit of me time every week. If you're a little bit further out, maybe you're closer to the year mark, because I know some of you guys are in this program for the whole year. If you're closer to the year mark, like maybe it's something bigger. Maybe it's going on a hike, with or without the kiddos this week. Maybe it's having an evening, like a girls' night, or maybe it's a date night with your husband, something that really like fills your cup and that makes you feel like you again. I think is super important. Like I said, reconnecting with your old hobbies, or maybe it's trying something new. Maybe this is a chance for you to just lean in and say, you know what, like I've always wanted to go rollerblading, so let me go find a pair and go try it out, like whatever that is for you. But the thing I hear the most often is that I don't have time for that. I don't have the energy for that. I don't have the resources for that. You have to be really, your time and your energy is very precious. And so you have to spend it very intentionally, and you have to prioritize how you spend your time, right? like, for example, if you think about like the last month of your pregnancy, um, you had a ton of doctor's appointments, I'm sure, like, checking weekly on the baby. If you had any kind of complications, maybe you had ultrasounds, maybe you had lab draws, maybe you were meeting with lactation or like any of those things, but you were still going to work, you were still, doing the rest of the things that you did in your daily life, but you made it happen. You still made it to those appointments and that kind of thing. And, so those times that we're kind of forced to squeeze things around and make it work, we can do it. But when it's something that's just for us, like obviously I'm not saying like leave your job for an hour to go rollerblading. But my point is just that, like, when we have to, we can be flexible with our schedule. And so looking at like how you spend your days and your weeks, or zooming out a little bit further and looking at the whole month, like you can find a little bit of time if you make it a priority. And so I encourage you to do that and then celebrate the small wins. Like, yes, I made it to the coffee shop, or I made it like on a walk. Maybe it's just doing some yoga upstairs by yourself, uninterrupted for an hour while your partner or your mom has the baby. And just celebrating those small wins, I think leads to like happier, more balanced moms, which kind of bleeds into the rest of the family. I am going to stop sharing that. And then I wanted to kind of open up discussion a little bit on, let me see, I had a couple of questions I'm going to pull up here. Okay. And I'll put it in the chat too. But I was curious if anybody wanted to share something. What is an instance? It could be like basically any time in your postpartum journey, something that's helped you build your confidence as a mom. And if anybody's willing to share, I'd love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's been kind of like I don't know if this is maybe answering the question or not, but I feel like it's been establishing a routine a little bit. So like in the mornings, I mean, now we're at a point where I can pretty much, gauge that he's going to wake up at the same time every morning or around the same time, which is really nice. And if he's not, then I'm kind of helping him with that so that he can get the feeling of his, rhythm and whatnot. But I just feel like having that routine in the morning has kind of helped me feel more confident as a mom.
I love that. And I think that helps like kind of like emphasize like focusing your energy on like what you know and what's like having that routine like makes it a little bit more automatic for you, where you're not having to like think about it so much and get tripped up on like small details, and just like having like, this is how I know that this part of my day goes. And I think that helps your baby too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And I know Mary was talking at the beginning about babies, like her baby is flip-flopped like day and night early on. And so I think that helps with that too, just to have the routines and like, because they don't know, like they were inside of this warm, dark, wet place for 9 months. And then all of a sudden they're here Earthside, and now all of a sudden there's the sun during the day and it's dark at night, and that means nothing to them. And so it's very normal for them to be flip-flopped, but to have that, to instill those kind of rhythms and routines, I think helps everybody. But I love that you're pulling the confidence piece there too.
It's probably going to sound a little bit silly, but it's something that kind of built the confidence as a mom a little bit earlier on, but just kind of when I was able to get like quicker at diaper changes and things like that, where it was kind of, again, kind of more that routine versus that like, all right, we're doing this, kind of taking a little bit, it was just kind of nice and neat when it was, suddenly, okay, we're doing this, and oh, look, I'm done already, and now we're moving on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
When it felt a little less like a major thing that had to
Yes. What I'm hearing is that like essentially the repetition of doing it has helped you kind of like essentially like exercise that muscle of like now I could do it with my eyes closed. Like I've done it so many times every single day for the last several months, and now I'm a master at diaper changes. Whereas like my first diaper change, I had never literally physically done that before, and so the repetition has helped you kind of be more confident there.
definitely.
Love that. Thank you for sharing. And I think a similar example would be like, you go home from the hospital and like, you've never buckled in the car seat before. And then you go home and then you have to leave the house essentially like the next day to go to the pediatrician. And like the idea of like loading up the car and making sure everything's in the diaper bag that you could need and like all those things, it seems so daunting. But after you've like left the house like many times, and like if you flash forward, think about yourself in a year when you've been doing this for a whole year, like you won't even bat an eye about leaving the house with your baby. But like right now, or 2 months ago, it seems a lot heavier and a lot. But you just got to put the reps in. You got to just go through the motions and build the confidence, not by like immediately assuming that you're going to be great and not worried about forgetting something, but by just doing it. And then you learn quickly sometimes when you realize I forgot the diaper bag, or or there's no diapers in the diaper bag. I forgot to refill it, or so those kind of things. You learn from experience. I never did anything like that, of course, but but yeah, just put in the reps. Does anybody else want to share?
I can share one.
Please.
Obviously my babies are a little older.
Mhm.
But I think something I learned early on, I'm a list maker. I like to,
Mhm.
check things off my to-do list. And so when I was feeling a little overwhelmed of like, oh, we need to go buy diapers and oh, I need to book that doctor's appointment and the to-do list starts getting long, it just writing it down and then being able to like check it off kind of made me feel
Mhm.
like, oh, I can handle this. And I will say with that, there is the caveat that sometimes if you don't check everything off of that to-do list, it can feel a little overwhelming or a little discouraging
Mhm.
at the beginning. And for me, the way I kind of got past that was just like, okay, like giving myself permission to just start that list the next day, right? And say, okay, I didn't get to
Mhm.
this yesterday. This is what I'm going to do today. And just kind of, just sort of listing things out. So it wasn't in my head of like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do this. And, I just had one organized place, made me feel somewhat competent. I don't know.
Mhm. I think that's also really important, like in this phase, because I hear a lot of moms talking about like being forgetful or being a little bit foggy, like, having that brain fog or the mom brain, as they say. I use that term lightly, but there really is like, there are changes that happen in your brain and you're not making it up. Like it is really happening, where it is like your, your focus changes. And so sometimes it's easier to get distracted by little things, and like, where did I put this, or why did I walk into this room? Like, don't feel alone when you're like experiencing those things. But when you're brand new and you haven't ever like this, you're going back to work, or like some kind of, or maybe your parents are going to start helping out with childcare or whatever that is, like having lists in those situations helps, where it's not a guessing game for whoever's involved. Like having like spelling it out for grandparents if they're going to be ever watching your baby, or having a list for like your when you go for the bag that you take to daycare, like what do we need to have ready? And sometimes it's preparing it the night before so you feel prepared. And maybe you say, okay, the night before, we're going to get all the bottles ready to take to daycare. We're going to get all of this, all of that. And then like it kind of ties back into like putting in the reps. Like I encourage, if you have the ability, like before, if you are going back to work, before you do that first daycare drop off, practice getting out the door at that time of the day so you can see how the drive feels and see how the timing is. And then you can like test out the daycare and just leave the baby there for a few hours as opposed to for the entire day. And that way you can build your confidence in the like daycare itself. But then you can also build your confidence in knowing that I have what I need to get out the door on time. Talk to your partner about who's going to get what ready and who's going to do the drop offs and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think lists are a great idea to kind of put it out all on paper. So I think, thank you, Savannah, for sharing that. Okay, I have another question for you guys, another discussion question. Looking back on your pre-baby life, I'd love for you to name one part of yourself that you miss, and then one new strength that you kind of have discovered that you have since becoming a mom. So something that you miss, and then a strength that you've discovered. And I'll put that in the chat here. And if you only want to answer one part of that question, that's fine too.
I think for me, oh, did someone else want to go ahead?
No, go ahead. You're good.
Okay. I guess one thing that I miss for sure is that I guess it's more of the fun me, the more anything that used to be activities or things that I used to do. It's kind of different now. I look back at some of the things I enjoyed before. I don't know if I necessarily would at all now. I do love my family time. I love being with my baby. So that part I think has been challenging is to find what are the new things that I would find fun and just kind of the more, relaxed me is not always there. Just trying to juggle um a little infant and also trying to work full time. It's really hard. And then also trying to balance out what it means for my own marriage and my relationship with my husband. So everything's kind of changed. So I miss what we used to do when it was just the two of us. Everything used to be light and a lot more fun. Now it's a lot more challenging because every single time, eh, it's learning a different thing for our baby as he keeps growing. You kind of get to that, wow, I feel confident now. I get what he wants. I have a better routine, and then he hits a different milestone, and then it changes all over again. So it's hard to kind of keep up with that. But I guess the strength, a huge one for me is that I never knew how much I could have just such unconditional love for my little baby. And even when I get frustrated with just absolutely sleepless nights, it still puts it in perspective that I love my little baby so much, especially since he was our little miracle one. So he was never supposed to be kind of around, and but it just happened. So I'm very blessed. So it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of kind of fighting for what would kind of what do I actually really miss, I guess, and kind of like you said, trying to figure out what would be those times of, trying to figure out me time and what does that actually look like now.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I love tying it back in with the beauty of your sweet little babe and how lucky we are to be mothers, but it's not without its challenges, right? It's not a walk in the park. And so navigating, like you were saying, like what, you lose that like spontaneity and that like levity, the kind of like carefree days of, before you had kids, right? Of course can still do fun things, but you maybe have to plan them a little bit more, and you can't, leave the house at 8 p.m. and like those kind of things make it hard. And so, being realistic, and then also like you said, your marriage, your relationships, those are very different too. And how you spend time together. Something I love to share because I feel like it shows like the like looking at things a little bit differently is like my husband and I, used to spend, time, or we still do, but spend time together in the evenings. We still spend that time after the girls go to sleep, but we find that often like we're just tired. Like we don't want to like sit there and like have these like deep, insightful conversations, or like we just want to like decompress, like read a book, watch TV, whatever you want to do, right? And so it's hard for us to like connect at the end of the day. And so sometimes we don't do it every morning, but sometimes we'll get up early, like at 5:30, and just sit on the couch and have coffee together. And that's like before the kids get up, and at least get like half an hour, depends on when they decide to wake up that day. But just to have a little bit of like connection time. But I just like to use that example because sometimes you have to be, because like, before kids, I never would have been like, oh yeah, let's hang out at 5:30 in the morning. But you kind of have to get creative and maybe think outside the box of when you normally can connect with your partner, and in what ways. And obviously like date nights and stuff that changes, and so getting a little bit more creative there, but also trying to fit in some time for you, I think is important too. But really you have to figure out what it is that you want to do, because I know we're just kind of speaking like more in like generalities, but whatever it is that lights you up or that you enjoyed, how can you adapt that or kind of find a way to fit it in, into your life now? I see Megan here said, I miss time alone as I recharge with silence, and the crazy noise with 3 kids feels overwhelming. I love the unconditional love and simple joys that my littles bring me, and strength is how much I can do on little sleep. Yeah, that is a flex that we never knew we needed, right? Yeah, the love that our kids, like, that's so unconditional that they show towards us is, that fills our cups a lot, right? But it is a lot sometimes. Sometimes it's like they're like physically on you and just need to like literally have some space. So Megan, I know that can be hard to do sometimes, because if you recharge with silence, then there's probably not a lot of that in a house with 3 little ones. And so like I encourage you to find a way to get out of the house this week, to rely on a friend, your partner, your family, if you have any. If you don't, find a way to step away, because if you try to find peace and quiet in your own house, like they're going to be knocking on the door. It's very hard to do when they can smell that you're in the room. I actually had a client who was taking a one-on-one call, and she literally like got in her car and just like moved it like across the street, so she could have the session in silence while her family was inside the house. So maybe you just need to go sit in your car for an hour.
It's not a bad idea.
Where are you going? Literally nowhere, just into the car.
When I was growing up, my mom used to always tell me she had to go to the bathroom. And sometimes I would be like, God, she has to go to the bathroom all the time. And now I think she used to just go to the bathroom to escape and like get a break in the moment so that things would shift. Because sometimes I do that. I'm like, I have to go to the bathroom, and I just go in there and shut the door. But
then until it backfires, and then they're like, their fingers are under the door. Like, Mom, what are you doing in there? I'm trying to escape from it. Oh, that's funny. I get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I encourage you to find a way to leave your house by yourself this week. I think that would help.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to share, either from the last question or any other, anything that came up over the last 45 minutes or so that you want to share with anybody, or anything that you want to discuss?
Mary here. So you kind of touched on it already, but missing kind of the freedom to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
Like you said, a lot of stuff, it's now kind of the need to plan ahead, and it's good because then I feel a lot more prepared when we take him out and everything. But in the past it could be like, hey, we're gonna go do this. You want to join? Oh, okay, sure. And now there's a lot more to join in for things, which isn't wrong, but just makes it harder. And then in terms of strength, it's very much a work in progress and need to continue working on its strengths, but just trying to be a lot better at communication with my husband. Kind of having that, like, okay, what's the plan tonight, or who can take him for a little bit in the morning, or just even kind of the, like, hey, I'm overwhelmed, can we figure out something to give me 10 minutes away, things like that, where it's still, we have a lot of failures with it, but we've also had several successes, and that's been encouraging.
That's awesome. I love that you guys are doing that, because I feel like there's no better advice for anybody that has a partner than to like work on your communication and to like check in with each other. Like, make sure that the other party is doing okay, that you're doing okay. And if you're not, like, what do you need? Because the other person can't read your mind, just like you can't read their mind. And so if you're not like talking to them about like how's everything going, like, what could we do better or do differently, to make things work a little better for our family and our situation. So great job on keeping up that communication. Obviously it's never perfect, but that, and we all know that. And so just kind of going through the motions, I think is important to like practice that like communication. There's one quote that I saw, let's see, I have it written down somewhere, that I wanted to share with you guys, and it is, the happier a mother is in her motherhood, the happier a child is in their childhood. And so like keeping that in mind, like the more joy that you can find in your daily life, in, the things that you do often, the more that your kids will see that and feel that and find joy themselves and know that they grew up with a mother who was joyful. And so remembering to take time for yourself and find that little bit of joy, I think is so important. And I see Renata here said you have a Wellness Wednesday. Oh, that's so, I love it. It has a name and everything. A Wellness Wednesday where they touch base emotionally and mentally with each other. So yes, definitely